All right, welcome
Okay.
back. This is part two. Andy, so we're fascinating talking there about your job, your career, shadows, that gap between A and B. Where
Mhm.
there's 6 degrees of separation between, and that's how the mind works. We make a weak link, another weak link, another weak link, and somehow we get to B. But of course, I'm the only one that can do that for me. I can be guided by a coach, by a
Mhm.
mentor, by just just somebody sitting having a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
Some of these, there's a few other points that we were talking about when we last talked. I'm quite interested in the
Okay.
word surrender. What
Okay.
does the word surrender mean for you? Because when we're working with a client, these
Mhm.
things come up, these shadows come up, these challenges come up for us. How do you work a client to but one part of it would be to let them go, those shadows, or to integrate them? Do we surrender to them? What do we do with that shadow when it comes up, when it's recognized with a client?
Well, let's go on the topic of surrendering first. Surrender to me is about allowing myself to be myself, flaws and all, shadows and all, allowing myself to do what I can, which is to work on myself, to do the shadow work, and surrender the rest that I cannot control to the universe, which is other people's perception of me. As an example, what other people think of me, whether I'm going to get this job or this promotion, whether this boy likes me or something like that. So, in many ways, like surrendering to myself, to my own, how would I say? It is surrendering to myself. It is surrendering to my own energy, surrendering to where I'm guided to clean myself up via doing the inner work. So surrendering to what the shadows request of me, surrendering to what the shadows are asking of me to look into. Because the shadows is the portal to transformation. The shadows literally give you the pathway to where you need to go so you can get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. And the shadows are normally the things blocking us to get us from A to B, or to get us, they're blocking us from, or they're I sort of see them as a mist. They're not showing us the path. They're hiding us the path to our authenticity, who we really want to be.
Mm, I, I I like that definition. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more on that?
We don't know what our shadows are. These are the things that we suppress, we deny, we pretend we don't know about. So we sort of push them down, and we when they start to come up, they're there for a reason.
Yes.
Our shadows have been put in place by our life experiences, the way
Hmm.
that we've been brought up, the way that we sit in our culture, the way that we react, the way that we'd like to be seen.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
But we can't see through the shadows. This is why I sort of see them as a cloud. We can't see the path. We have to interact. And I don't want to say confront because that's definitely the wrong word with the shadows. You don't confront shadows because what are they there for? When I'm working with clients with meditation, it's actually
Mm.
the biggest and most important first part of shadows just to acknowledge them. And the
Yes.
power
To
of
acknowledge that they're there.
yes, absolutely. The power of meditation and journaling, which are important parts of shadow work,
Yes.
is just acknowledging them. And a lot of them,
Mm.
just by this reflection, that they integrate because the unconscious can't deal with them. This situation happened. It's created this thing that I'm not emotionally comfortable with. There's no memory, intellectual, conscious memory of it, but it's something that it's there, but I don't know. I can feel it, but I don't know what it is.
Mm. Mm.
So it's just something it's hiding the path for us. But it's something that just by looking into, by acknowledging, we will often dissipate. There are other emotional events that take a bit more work with a coach,
Mhm.
I was going to say qualified coach. It's not a qualified coach. What it is a coach that can actually guide you through it. Guiding a coach that can guide you and a qualified coach are two different things, I think.
Let's say
That's another
facilitator,
podcast.
someone that can facilitate the transformation and the healing and the shadow work.
And shadow work and facilitating at this level is not something, I don't know if you can go to class. How did you learn to shadow work? Do your shadow work? Did you go to a class or did you?
I
How did it
just
work?
sat down and like I did it myself. I did a whole bunch of research online. And then when I realized that all I had to do was feel, that that boils down to it. Like like someone could say that shadow work is ABCDE and come up with a whole bunch of processes. And I've done all those processes. I've done the journaling prompts. I was at Ken Wilber's 3-2-1 process, and all of it's great. It's
Yeah,
great. But honestly, from my perspective, and I can only speak from my experience and the experience of my clients, you just have to allow yourself to feel through it. Just sit with it, feel through it. And maybe at the beginning it helps to intellectualize it, to identify where this is coming from.
mm.
Which trauma is it rooted from? What is this fear? Where is it coming from? Having that awareness, because it helps. But then the more you get into it, and the more your vibration rise, the more you're comfortable with it, the more you're more resilient at this point after doing a fair bit of shadow work. And at this point, you just got to sit with it and you're comfortable. And a lot of times, shadow work, as you said earlier on, once it's brought from unconscious to conscious, it's already done. It's just
Hmm.
energy that needs to be felt. And once all energy needs to be moved, that's all. And once you allow the energy to move through you, it's done. Shadow work,
Absolutely.
it can be hard, yes, initially, but it can also be the easiest thing after a certain point, obviously.
It's no, I absolutely agree. Shadow work it's something that I've come into from different angles, but it
Mm-hmm.
evolved out of the fact that um I wasn't doing inner child work, but what we were doing, I've now labeled as inner child work because when we're really
Yes.
young, pre-verbal especially, um, these things happen and we're in that non-dual state. So we're not separated. It's not me and mum and dad or me and my siblings. Everything's one. So
Mm-hmm.
very much at that stage, your pain is my pain. But then very quickly
Yes.
we learn and once we become verbal and start to use words and process like that, we start to recognize this separation, this duality. But at that early
Yes.
stage from birth, uh, in those early years, and it can happen right into your early preteens,
Mm-hmm.
things are emotional. We don't intellectualize. A lot of words that we learn, a lot of people that we associate with at that age, we don't have labels for them or words for them or sentences.
Mm.
They're feelings. And this is why
Yes.
what you're saying is so important. It's feeling. And of course, as we get older, we get into our teens, we get older into our millennial and that to protect ourselves, the ego steps in, it's looking after us. We get this mind body disconnect.
Yes.
To
Yes.
intellectualize it, to distract ourselves, to go to parties or drink or smoke or whatever the distraction
Mm.
is, it's stopping that feeling going on. So it is quite a challenge. And can I say maybe more with males, more with masculine people than feminine people to feel.
Absolutely, because from young, men were taught to just keep pushing on, and to feel is to be weak. Even so many women like that or maybe or at least the most of the corporate women that I've met, like we were taught to push on, to be masculine, to be career driven, to be ambitious.
Mm.
So as women, as a woman, I had a lot of very masculine energy and a lot of masculine traits. And if that is me as a woman experiencing it, I cannot imagine the massive population of men that have been taught that to be vulnerable and to be expressive of your feelings is
Feel.
weak. Like
It's
it's a disease, honestly.
dis-ease. It is
Dis-ease, yes.
absolutely because we get that dis-ease is caused because of the imbalance, and we're not masculine or feminine. We're both. But if we're
You're both.
suppressing one, then we're out
Yes,
of
yes.
balance. But for all of us, just to survive, because especially today, post-COVID has created more of these problems where it's really hard to feel, to understand, and so we behave, we react, we an event happens, we're triggered, and we react to it. We don't think about the
Project.
emotions. Oh, we project, absolutely, and so this gets us into trouble. But to
Yes.
actually get clients, see, I work with lots of coaches, and lots of coaches, I call them consultants because they're
Hmm.
accounting coaches. So they've been an accountant, they're really skilled at it, and they'll coach you. And that's fair enough.
Yes.
There's a place for that. But
Yes.
an accounting coach is not going to deal with I'm not worthy, because I'm not worthy is not a technical headspace conscious thing. It's a feeling. It
Yes.
is
Yes.
it is all
It's a
about
belief.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to start talking about beliefs and values in my next couple of podcasts. Because even again, it's with beliefs and values, we were born pretty much with a blank slate that babies have a fear of falling and loud noises. But other than that, we learn mostly by observation. But
Yes.
you know, I was talking to somebody the other day. Your eyes are your eyeballs. Your eyes don't see anything. Your eyes translate what's coming through, and your mind, your brain, translates it into an
Interprets it. Yeah.
understanding, interprets it.
Based on the Rolodex of information that you have, they kind of
Exactly.
take in all that bits of information and come up with the vision of, okay, this is what it actually means. But
Yes.
someone else receiving that same information is probably going to come up with a completely different interpretation.
But it's quite interesting. Psychology. I was dealing with this 20 years ago, but psychology is starting to come out, and they're starting to see that there's about half a dozen things, 4 to 7 things that are our core beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worthy is one of them. For whatever reason, lots of people will see an event and they'll all see different things, they'll all interpret different things from it. And
Yes.
that's what they take in. But that self-worth is one of the more powerful core beliefs that we have.
Mm.
There's other ones as well, but we start off with that, and then we look around. So we develop that system of this is my self-worth. I don't have great self-worth. This is the way I behave. This is the way I get treated. This is the way I want to be seen in the world, or this is the way I think I'm being seen in the world. And this all builds up this onion, this layers and layers of challenges, problems, reinforcing of that behavior, which are protections. Because
Yes.
the mind runs around, it sees an event happens, it races around it. Oh, that event's happened. It's like that. This is how we react. So we spend most of our lives asleep, unconsciously
Yes.
behaving to stimuli that
Autopilot.
come into our autopilot.
Yes.
And these stimuli come in, we react to them. But they're also, and the ego has a lot to do with this protection, because it's looking after us, our however it sees it, it's looking after us. So it's holding on
Mm.
to this fragile belief that we can exist. I'm getting off the subject, aren't I? But it's pressed down those things that we got laughed at. When I was really young, I got laughed at for singing in the mirror. So I could have been a great singer. That could be the gold that I can find, but I've
Yes.
suppressed it down.
Yes.
But it's uncomfortable. We're out of balance. There's this dis-ease that's happening because of this. So and that's why I see the shadows as something that sort of we can't see through. We start to feel it's there. We start to become aware that things are
Mm.
coming up for us, but we don't actually, until we've started to get into maybe working with a transformational coach or working with a shadow coach, somebody that can
Mm.
actually get you to acknowledge the shadows. And
Yes.
I don't the way I work is not to confront them, because that is me becoming the guru, me pushing the person. This is not accountability. There's something slightly different to accountable. I can still hold a client accountable, but not to
Mm.
push them to look at their shadow and confront their shadow, because
That's a
you run
personal
the trouble.
choice.
That has to be their personal choice. You hold them up.
Yes.
You hold it. I call it press. Say you hold them up to the shadow, but
Mm.
that's their personal choice. The right time, right place to step through that shadow.
Absolutely. And
To
it takes time.
it can take all sorts of interventions. Ken Wilber's 3-2-1 is one that I've used. I use values levels, consciousness levels,
Hmm.
journaling and meditation, easy ones to get into. Debbie Ford's
Absolutely.
book.
Absolutely. Like journaling, I think has been that was also one of the first things that, as to, how I got into personal development. It was just journaling, and journaling on my shadows, having this long list of questions that I would ask myself, like it could be something as simple as, why did I have this emotional reaction today? What was behind that reaction? How do I feel about it? How did I judge myself? How did I judge the situation today? Why did I judge it like that? And allowing the journaling to happen via that stream of consciousness, like without overthinking it. And this one does actually take some adjusting, especially if, considering I was so new to it and so in my head, that when I finally learned how to just allow the stream of consciousness to flow, I would compare my journaling sessions, like, the more recent ones, compared to like back in the day when I first started. And I was, oh my goodness, it's like two different people.
It's I don't know what it is, and you have to write in journaling, not type. But when you're typing on a computer, it doesn't do the same thing. It's getting the way I
Handwritten.
describe it, handwritten. The way I describe it is it gets stuff out of your head so that you can start to leave space for the
Yes.
mind to start to self-reflect. And this is the thing about meditation. It's quietening the mind down with all the chatter that's going on, the voices in our head and all that stuff, settling it down so that it can then process through what's most important for it, rather than all the
Yes.
distractions that our conscious puts us in front of, or our ego. Our ego is quite happy to have these addictions so that we're distracted. But when you
Absolutely.
meditate and the mind can deal with what's coming up for it, and that's quite internal. And I find I sort of go between guided and non-guided meditations.
Hmm.
Sometimes guided meditations are helpful in just processing through, but of course, the non-guided ones, so when it's just the frequencies, the sounds, I can allow at that stage my own stuff to come up.
Yes.
And just by acknowledging them. And with journaling, it's similar. It's just journaling seems to get it out, and it's free flow writing what comes up. And then it's starting to notice the patterns,
Yes.
because we run systems all the time. We look outside ourselves again for the systems that we see in nature, that we see in society, but all this is
Mm.
going on within before it happens without.
Within,
So we
internally.
notice
Yeah.
that, start to notice these patterns. And I think that's when you move from that self-awareness stage, what I'm doing, to be able to put in place how I want to show up. So this is how I
Mm.
show up. This in this incident, this is what I do. Oh, and
Mhm.
I do that in different scenarios, different events happen, and I have the same sort of behavior.
Mm.
But of course, the unconscious doesn't know what better to put in place. And I think by confronting those shadows, we then can, okay, I've integrated that. Now I can put better behaviors in place.
Because you have more capacity to do so. Because
I
it's,
recognize that some aren't helping
yeah,
me. And now I have the space to, yeah, to put better capacities in place, better coping strategies, not even really coping strategies. That's the wrong word, because I'm no longer coping. I'm being proactive rather than reactive.
you're just in a different way of, you're just in a different state of being now. Because that's the beauty of discovering shadows and releasing it. Because hold a particular, shadows always have a denser frequency. And so once you release that, once you transmute that, you feel a lot freer, you feel a lot lighter, you feel you have more energy, more creativity, more resilience to go and push forward to what it is that you want to do. It could be something as simple as just having better mechanisms in place for how you want to respond to the same
Yeah.
situation next time, as opposed to reacting. It could be something as simple as that, or it could be something really big as, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to book flights to Brazil. It's like a really, really wide spectrum there. And I really genuinely do feel that our shadows, they play such an, maybe I can say it from where I am now, but I feel like shadows play such an integral part in our human evolution. And they really are, when you watch a movie, everyone likes a feel good movie, obviously, but a lot of people love the action, we love the drama, we love that. It's a human nature thing. We want to know, we want to see where the people break up, or we want to see where, this company bankrupts for a little while and this relationship doesn't work out. And I feel like the shadows,
They are
it's
our
those
shadows, aren't they?
moments for us. Sorry?
They are our shadows. The negative things that come up, the company
Yeah.
bankrupting or the
Yeah.
relationship collapsing. And I suppose we get a perverse sense of I'm better than that, but really I'm sensing,
But
I'm
are
feeling,
we?
I'm projecting it. Well, we're not, of course, but we're seeing it. Yeah, it's I mean I don't have television, we don't watch the news, but the news is full of
Yes.
bad news. It's not full of great news and this person achieved this or
Mm.
that's for some reason not worthy. They're all into showing bad stuff because we all want to, and this is a problem with COVID. The only contact a lot of people had was watching the news, which was all negative.
Yes.
So this is how
Yes.
many people have got COVID and the numbers rising and the fears rising and
Yeah.
you sort of think, am I being manipulated? But it's that sense, that feeling. I wonder. I was going to talk there about energy work. I don't label myself as an energy healer, so you can help me out here. The way I see it is that an event happens, a significant emotional event happens. Now we very
Mm.
seldomly can remember the event. It's all
Yes.
subjective, but there is a hook there. There's some energy, some emotion that's hooked there. So I come into the world with 100% energy. Well, if that emotion's held there physically in my body or maybe outside my body, that's some of
Mm.
my energy that's fractured off. So we get to our age in life where this life history of fractured energy and
Mm.
in acknowledging and integrating the shadow, that energy comes back in.
Mm-hmm.
But this
Mm-hmm.
is why when people start to do energy shadow work, they feel more energized because they're
Yes.
actually collecting their history of sort of events. Because an event happened, when I was young. If it's still triggering me, there's something being held there at that event.
Yes. You have to go deeper.
And get back to the original. What's holding that event there? What's the original event that happened? Now I'm never
Mm.
going to get back to that pre-verbal state, but the unconscious can understand it. It can create a metaphor. The unconscious only deals in metaphor and symbolism. It doesn't deal in words.
That's true.
That's why meditation works, because
Mm.
meditation is the imagery that's set up. So if the unconscious can understand that event, the original event, without remembering it exactly, because it can't,
Mm.
because so all it's doing is it's going to the emotion. Once that's integrated, then that energy is coming back into me, coming back into the present day. So I'm going
The
to
energy of the shadow, you mean?
the shadow's there because it's being held by an emotion. It's
Yes.
the energy from
Yes.
the emotional hook. That's what's
Yes.
coming in.
Yes.
You can say the shadow is just
Mm.
covering the emotion, if you like. The shadow is no longer there. It's integrated. It's no longer a shadow. The event still happened. Can't change the
Yes. Yeah.
event, but it's no
Hmm.
longer a shadow. It's no longer an emotional hook for us.
Yes.
So that
Yes. Once it's been
emotion,
in, yeah. Once it's been
that
shifted and
emotions,
integrated.
yeah, it's just so you could say that the energy is integrated as well. You can't destroy energy. So where's it gone? It's come back into where I am today. How would
In
you
a
describe energy work? What's it doing?
So, well, everything that you said before, like it makes sense, right? Energy can't be destroyed. It can only be transformed or it can be moved. And so I can give a very recent example. On myself, actually, I've been feeling a lot of energy come up over the 7-7 gateway in the past week. And I couldn't explain this energy. I didn't really know why. And I didn't bother intellectualizing what it is. And when I went to look deeper into it, I basically spoke to my guides. I was directed to my womb space. And it turns out there was this feeling of, I can never do enough. And it would have been what I felt it was just a belief. Because that's what, for me, shadows, if you can identify the limiting belief that the shadow has manifested,
Hmm.
you can deal with the shadow very, very easily. And so what I felt was that there was this feeling of, oh, I am not good enough. And this is not just in this lifetime. It comes from other lifetimes as well. from the there was it came to mind. There was a past life of when I was a teenager, a Native American teenager, and there was another time where I was a mom that I had lost my child, and there was not, because it was sick, and there was nothing that I could do to save that child. And so you can see how all the threads,
Hmm.
not just of this life but of past life, linking into this energy this was concentrated in my room space. So what I did was I just went in there and I used the violet flame, I used the silver ray, and I just kind of like washed it, like cleared it all. And because of that, I literally felt that heavy energy, it lifted. And when I came out of meditation, I went to the gym and I ran for ages. I was just
Too much
so
energy.
energized. It's so energized. I felt like I could just breathe. And lots of people even have asked me at not just from this particular situation, but in previous times, they said like, "Oh, why do you think you felt so bad?" And I tell them that, well, if something is coming up, it's ready to be released,
Mm,
and that
mm,
can just come
mm.
up whenever. It could come up when you're in the shower, it could come up when you're sleeping. Sometimes just there's no rhyme or reason. When it's ready to go, it's ready to go. And so that's the kind of energy work that I do. And so, yeah, shifting energy that is within the body, but also having that understanding that a lot of it is not necessarily just even in this lifetime. It comes in from different lifetimes as well.
We don't have lots of time, but generational work is a whole other podcast, I think.
Yes.
I, I work with, I sort of see, I see shadow work as an umbrella. There's, as you're saying, Ken Wilber's work, archetypes, spiral dynamics,
Mm,
values levels, inner child work. There's cultural consciousness, how we're forced to, especially here in the UK, in England, sorry, we just
mm.
lost the second time in the European football, and there's a depression going on. So there's a cultural
I'm sorry
influence
to
that
hear that.
I'm not English. I'm from New Zealand. We won't go into New Zealand because
Okay.
New Zealand just beat England as well. So I'm happy. I'm full of
Okay.
energy. But then there's also generational influences come down,
Mm,
which is yeah, that has to be. I think the only way I've done that is being coached or guided through that to go
mm,
back to those levels to explore what's going to come down when it comes up. The question I had there um about energy workers, I run into challenge sometimes, and I know talking about cultural consciousness,
mm,
I'm at a level where I'm aware when it's my stuff or when it's
mm.
somebody else's stuff.
When it's the collective's
Like the
stuff.
collectives, like the depression today in in England because we lost the football. Or when a client is going through stuff, not a client, somebody that I'm just talking to, they're going through stuff, but when they're not talking
Mm.
about it. So we're
Yes.
talking about the weather and they're going through a divorce, but they haven't talked about the divorce. How do you deal with protecting yourself from other people, individuals, or cultural energies that come up? Because there's all sorts of energies flying around. We have our own personal space, if you
Mhm.
like, our own personal energy. So how do you, well, am I saying something that you're not aware of? But ask that one first. And then if you are aware of the other energies, how do you deal with, how do you cope with protecting yourself?
So my philosophy is a bit different on this, and maybe this could be considered controversial because there's so many energy workers and people out there who talk about, you have to protect yourself from this and protect yourself from that. The way I look at it is you don't have to protect yourself from anything. All you have to do is focus on your own vibration. So when you walk into a room, to my knowledge and to my experience, when you walk into a room, all the entire vibration of the room is going to attune to the person with the highest vibration.
Oh, I love it. Yes,
And
absolutely.
and so and so I could walk into a space of depression, right? But if my chakras are cleared and I am solid in my vibration is solid in integrity, then everyone is going to attune to my vibration. And that is the best form of protection, we could say.
Oh, that's next level. I like that.
Mm.
That's,
You don't
that's
have to put in some spell to protect, and because to me that
Mhm.
creates separation, and we are not, we are one.
Hmm.
So it's about making sure that your vibration is solid in your own, and everyone
So
else can help attune to that.
people become comfortable in your environment because you're tuning to you rather than sitting wallowing in their lower energy levels. I really like
Yes, and
that.
I am not attuning to theirs. I'm
Right.
just
Yeah, yeah,
attuning
yeah,
to
yeah.
mine.
You're
Yeah.
holding your space so that they can, because we have these energy connections when we meet somebody. If we go into a room,
Mm.
then it's when you go into a room and in the real sovereign, the real leaders there, they're not throwing their weight around or saying anything. They can be quite quiet, but they hold the
Yeah,
space. And they're not,
absolutely. That's exactly
it's
right.
all energy. I think we should wrap it up there. I don't want to
Yes.
mess that up because that's a really, I'm gonna have to listen to this again and take that as a quote. Yeah, I like that.
That's a good note to end it on, isn't it?
Absolutely. The hour's almost up, Andy. This has been really, really fascinating. What would you like to leave us with?
Now, that is an interesting question. I
You could
think
just leave
based
us with what you said because what you were talking about there, holding
I
that
could leave.
space.
I could leave. I'm happy to leave it at that, but I think I also want to add something. If we are taught, since this whole discussion has been about shadow work, I want to say that your shadows are your best friend. That's all I want to leave it. Your shadows are actually your best friend. And your shadows, even though it seems like it's going to feel chaotic, it is literally your portal to that next level version of you. And I'll leave it at that.
Lovely. Cool. So Andy, I'll put this up on the YouTube. And you've
Yes.
got a website, haven't you? And you've got your courses and your contact details on there. So where do you work
Yes.
with clients? In Asia,
Uh,
Australasia, or anywhere?
well, I can work remotely because I divide my time between Malaysia and Australia at the moment. So if anyone is in Brisbane, then we could do something that is face to face. Otherwise, it would mainly be online. But this kind of work, it can be done online really easily, and it's very
Right.
flexible as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if anybody's interested, there'll be a link down below here, so you can go onto Andy's site and look at what else she's doing. I do like the idea of energy work. All right. Thank you very much, Andy. We'll sign off and we'll hopefully we might see you again sometime.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, John. I hope that you've enjoyed the wisdom that I've shared. I look forward to potentially having another conversation because it's been really fun having this conversation and sharing so much wisdom and insights. I've learned so much myself. So thank you, John.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everybody. Remember to subscribe, sign up so that you get future sessions, future podcasts when we run this. Bye for now.